prefer to be right? And if you had a choice of colors, which one would you choose, my brothers? If there was no day or night, which would you prefer to be right? If you had a choice of colors, which one would you choose, my brothers? If you had a choice of colors, which one would you choose, my brothers?
Alrighty there, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good evening, good night, and good afternoon. It's your nighttime, right time DJ with another episode of the Chop Shop. As always, with me, my good friend and my co-host, Shaw Willie. We're going to get straight to it, folks. We're going to talk about black politics, the political specter. You saw the name, you saw the screen where it's, the question asked, did we ever have a seat at the table? I say, in my opinion, we did, but we had the wrong people at the table. So I thought about doing a series to prove my point. And of course, the best thing to do is to start at the top of the political spectrum. There's no political spectrum higher other than the presidency and the Supreme Court of the United States. And I'm almost at the point of saying that the Supreme Court of the United States has more pull than the President of the United States, because guess who's reviewing all the cases against former President Donald Trump? Guess who's leaning in the favor of all of Donald Trump's cases that's got to go in front of these different courts being held up by the Supreme Court? Mainly, once it's the particular Clarence Thomas looks like us, he acts like us sometimes. Okay, let me turn that down just for a second. Let's take this and release some connections here. This one, let me turn that down. I got you. How about that right there? But anyway, since my co-host is giving me direction, turn that shit down. Come on in, Shaw Willie, and say hello to everybody. How you doing? Come in.
Greetings. Hello.
Turn that shit down. I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to get some. There's guitars in the background.
It was a tad bit loud.
Anyway, so I don't. Again, I hate to steal a line from Dr. Ritchie, but I think it's always appropriate. I don't assume to know what all you know about politics, but I'm sure you've seen in the news here recently that Clarence Thomas, key political figure, is under some fire for receiving enormous amounts of money, gifts, and trips from huge donors. You familiar with any of this news that's been floating around here the last couple of months?
Yes, I have heard that, and it got a little quiet too.
Right, it bubbled up for a minute, and then it got quiet. Now it's resurfacing again. Even so much as right now, as we speak, this is news headlines right now. That's kind of why it kind of ties into the series that I want to do on our black political spectrum. Now, my next question to you, Shaw, do you think in your lifetime, do you think that we as black people have had a seat in the political spectrum?
Well, the face, the color, yes, but as far as any power to make some some changes that will affect us or help us in any type of way, I'll say no.
So to use a phrase one of these YouTube creators, is be no nation when it comes to black politics.
Yeah. Only in color only at this point. Yeah.
Right. But see, that's what everyone is saying, Shaw. You know that although Clarence Thomas is one of the in the highest positions in the world, you know, people don't look at him as the Supreme Court justice, the number one guy. They give that role to another guy. But what's been going on here? Fair use. Let me say that first. Fair use.
The ethics scandals we've been reporting on are continuing to cascade. Senate Democrats have found familiar, this is new, 3 more secret luxury trips that Clarence Thomas took from Republican megadonor Harlan Crow. Crow's own records, which, pursuant to oversight, had to be turned over to the Senate committee here, show what you see on your screen. Thomas flying on his private jet on these trips. And this dates back to 2017 and 2019, Washington to Georgia, and a third newly revealed trip between Washington and California, crisscrossing the country in private jets on a billionaire's dime. This is not how most people live. ProPublica, the first outlet to report on all of this, and they revealed that for over 2 decades,
Now, just in what we heard just coming up there, Shaw, wouldn't you think that that in itself would be inappropriate behavior for a Supreme Court justice?
Yes.
Yes. Billionaires. Now, think about it. This guy, Harlan Crow, donates more to him or gives him more than his actual salary.
Where he get that from?
Huh?
Where he get that money from?
Right. Right. Think about that, folks. A Supreme Court justice, a lifetime position. He has gotten more donations from Harlan Crow, and it's going to come up on the screen a little bit later. He's gotten more donations from Harlan. His salary as a sitting Supreme Court justice. At one point in time, he threatened to resign because he was not getting paid enough.
Oh, wow.
Let's continue.
Thomas has been taking these luxury trips. Some reported, most though, secretly hidden. Thomas facing mounting scrutiny. You see this here. There are problems, and then there is Clarence Thomas.
Look at that chart, folks. That red line, it shows all the other different donations that the Supreme Court justices have had. Okay, when you start noticing, you start at the right, you don't see anything. But the closer you get to the left-hand side of the screen and you get to Clarence Thomas's name, wouldn't you think that this man is compromised?
Oh, yes, very.
Wouldn't you think that whoever is paying him, he's beholden to? Looking at this, $4 million. Why, in any case, why should there be all of them? There should be no red there at all. All of them should be flat line zero. So my question to you is, why is any Supreme Court justice taking money or favors from other political entities that has a stake in how you vote?
Right.
What you take up. They say we don't have a seat at the table, but they consider this court, the Supreme Court, the Clarence Thomas Court. And it's been that way for quite some time. Clarence Thomas has been on the Supreme Court for quite a number of years. I see. I think I borked out a little bit. Did you hear me just now, Shaw?
Yeah, you borked out a little bit, but I will say that maybe he got the money and he divvied it out to the rest. Think that could be it?
No, he didn't give it out to nobody. Him and his wife Jeannie was living a lifestyle. Even so much so, if I'm not allegedly, I'm not for sure, but I think if you folks can look this up, I do believe Clarence Thomas' son is either Not exactly sure, but allegedly. So I didn't really look that up, but y'all need to check that out. So much help he has, huh?
Wow.
This is a level of grift that, as you've heard me say before, any member of Congress would be in trouble for, but apparently these justices see themselves as quite literally above the law and the rules. Meanwhile, the man who is hiding secret luxury travel and private jet travel that outstrips all of his colleagues appointed by both parties also likes to lie and claim that what he really prefers is to stay off the airplanes altogether, to say nothing of private jets, and go to RV parks.
I prefer the RV parks. I prefer the Walmart parking lots to the beaches and things like that. There's something normal to me about it. I come from regular stock, and I prefer that. I prefer being
Who you fooling with that?
I think his sister need to say something about this. Give her some commentary about him.
Right. Where are the people that come out when you see this bold-faced lie? Why didn't y'all call Clarence Thomas out about this bold-faced lie, sister, daddy, brother? Well, I think his father's passed away, but there's folks that knew that Clarence Thomas was lying, knew that he was living a luxury lifestyle. It has been for quite some time, so much so that his mother lives in a place where Harlan Crow owns. She's been living there years, rent-free. Have we had a seat at the table, folks? Prime example. A double agent. Not all skin folk. We see that right now. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about as we get further into this. Sure? Anything you want to add?
I'm interested in seeing what this is.
around them.
No, he doesn't. I can't stress this enough. The way that Clarence Thomas, almost more like a politician or some, corporate figure, has laundered this and publicly misled about what he prefers is itself a kind of tell. Because while he was giving these interviews and while he's talking this up, he also knew he was hiding these luxury trips. And again, you can criticize justices for all kinds of reasons. Most of them do not go out of their way to buddy up to billionaires and then hide luxury jet travel. It's not actually what most of them do. And this is the first of several Supreme Court scandals. Just this week, you had those secret tapes of Justice Alito raising questions about his judgment and bias.
I don't know that we can negotiate with the left in the way that needs to happen for the polarization to end. I think that it's a matter of winning.
I think you're probably right.
Now, this judge right here, this particular judge, Judge Alito, on tape, I guess he didn't know he was being recorded, So again, he thought he was being recorded by a alliance, but he was being recorded by a foe. And his comment was, there's one side's got to win, and he chose a side. He chose the side of them, the Clarence Thomases of the world, the Yasser bosses. Think about this: if you had an American flag in your front yard, hanging up your front porch, and you turned it upside down, the police would show up at your house, and somebody would call on you. This guy did, and blamed it on his wife. Been in allegiance with Clarence Thomas for years. They think alike, they act alike. We have a seat at the table? Yes, we have. Clarence Thomas has been there the whole time. He's been in white world. He's been there trying to escape from black world, and you'll see exactly what I mean a little bit later on. This Judge Alito right here, they're all for Donald Trump. Every one of them.
Differences on fundamental things that really can't be compromised.
No compromise for Justice Alito. As we mentioned, whenever we play that was recorded surreptitiously by an activist. There are a lot of questions here as well about Alito's violation of the U.S. flag code through his household, and as we discussed earlier in the broadcast, his claims that he didn't see the flag, didn't know about it, and he deferred to his wife. One day after Senate Democrats did force that vote to try to get a binding code of ethics for the Supreme Court. And while ethics used to be the kind of thing many politicians said they support in government, and conservatives used to say you need.
I want y'all to understand what he just said. A code of ethics for the Supreme Court. None exists. The Supreme Court can do exactly what it wants. Now, again, if you are taking $4 billion in trips, in luxury trips, jet setting across the continent of the United States and abroad in private jets, wouldn't you feel that this man has been compromised? Sean, what you think?
It sure is. I mean, this is obvious. It is obvious because no one's going to give you anything for nothing.
Right, blatant. This is blatant, but there's no code of ethics for the Supreme Court. No one can tell them what to do. It's a lifetime appointment. There's only one way to get off the Supreme Court.
Strict rules so people don't abuse government power. That's why they said they like limited government. It was conservative Republicans who blocked this getting to the floor.
You know, I think it's just a campaign of harassment against the Supreme Court in order to try to undermine public confidence, and I think it's dangerous, frankly.
It's absurd. And the threatened funding, I mean, remember, they're an independent branch of government. I mean, they have life-term appointments.
This would be an unconscionable overreach. This would undermine the court's ability to operate effectively. And it's been a continued effort by our friends on the Democratic side to undermine a court they don't like.
This is not a drill. And the biggest questions are not just for Alito and Thomas, although they are causing the problems. But the buck stops with Chief Justice Roberts, who runs the court, controls assignments of the big opinions, and has to decide if he's going to put a stop to any of this.
And so far, ladies and gentlemen, he absolutely has not. He has not put a stop to any of this. You saw top Republicans running interference, saying that it would be unethical. What do y'all not see the $4 million that this man received? How would it be unethical to ask Judge Thomas, what are you doing for this $4 million? And
Well,
if it was above board, Sean, why would he feel the need to hide it?
well, that's how they all play. So, hey, I can't point that out. You gonna point me out?
Right. Don't tell on me and I won't tell on you. Is that what you said?
Exactly.
You get
That's how to do it.
tell. I gotta tell too. Right. But again, let's continue. Next, we're gonna run into one of my the beach bad body built butch blonde, whatever she called her name, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now that that's died down a little bit, she got back to the business of holding the Republicans accountable and calling Judge Thomas out. We didn't do the interview in its entirety. The link is down in the description there. You can go check it out in its entirety, where you can actually hear her say for herself. The reason I didn't want to have that on the stream, that YouTube might hold me accountable for it later on. So you can go then catch the link and hear her call Judge Thomas out herself. But let's check out some of the opinions here.
Any effort to fix the ethical mess on the court is very likely to be met with opposition from your Republican colleagues. We already saw that happen in the Senate this week. How do you convince your colleagues across the aisle that the Supreme Court needs fixing when this is the court that has given Republicans so much of what they want?
I don't think it's a voice that they actually will pay any attention to. I think it's going to be up to the voters. I think for the first time, voters are talking about the Supreme Court as they're considering who it is that they are going to vote for president, as well as during some of those down ballot elections. And so one reason that Democrats may actually hold on to the Senate is because of the Supreme Court and the fear that if for some reason Republicans are given control of the Senate, that they will actually make the Supreme Court even worse than it is. And God knows how bad that could be for us as a country if this court gets any worse. So I don't think that they're really willing to listen to me, but I absolutely believe that the people are the only ones that are going to be able to rectify this issue.
She said they won't listen to her because they don't take this particular black woman seriously. They don't take the real stars of the black political arena. They don't take them seriously. Working to help the empowerment of black people. You can look at the whole Congressman Crockett's work, not only this, but throughout her career, even back in high school. This is her calling, and that's why she says they won't listen to her. But if she was like the Tim Scotts, the Clarence Thomases, the other Yassa bosses that's sitting up in Congress, that's buddying up to Donald Trump, then they'll listen to him. They'll have the floor. Sure, your thoughts?
Well, she mentioned listening to us. I will say how many of us will be able to come together and say and do enough that there will be a change, because they are the highest. I mean, even when we do commentary, channels are, got a little slap on the wrist. Oh, well, that's misinformation. Oh, you can't use that article, so it's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear exactly what she's saying.
Right. Hey, ABT, this series on black politics. I don't see it being done very much in the YouTube streets. And when it is done, it's usually some kind of controversial thing where they try to discredit black women, like they do Jasmine Crockett here, like they do Kamala Harris, like they do Supreme Court Justice Brown, like they do. We saw some guy did a stream with comparing two mayors, Tiffany Hilliard and Lori Lightfoot. One of them is not even the mayor of Chicago yet, but this whole stream was dedicated to, right. The whole stream was dedicated to carrying these two particular black women down. So I think that's what she meant by saying they're not going to listen to us because like.
Oh, wow. You really went silent.
So,
More
Michael,
than 5
Congressman
seconds.
raises a really interesting point. Most people are used to thinking about the Supreme Court as the impartial branch of government. How do you think the public is going to respond with the court being at the center of politics, and that politics may actually be the best source of solutions for everything that ails the court right now?
Melissa, many other times in our history, the Supreme Court and its role and whether it's gone too far has been a big electoral issue, a big political issue. Right now, all the polls show that public trust in the court has collapsed to the lowest level ever recorded. More and more people are seeing that it's a governmental agency. These are 9 government officials. They wear robes, but they're not wizards or religious figures. They're just government officials with lifetime appointments and huge power over the rest of our lives. So I think it's entirely appropriate to have it be a big issue. The Democrats have made productive freedom an issue, but they have not made the Supreme Court itself an issue, and I hope that's the next step.
Well, a big part of making the court a big issue is to focus on the court's relationship to some of these other electoral issues. So, Congresswoman, one big issue for many voters is the question of gun violence. And I'd like to read you a quote from Justice Alito's concurring opinion in the bump stock case that was decided yesterday. Justice Alito wrote, quote, "There is a simple remedy for the disparate treatment of bump stocks and machine guns. Congress can amend the law. and perhaps would have done so already if.
Now, I know I'm so I'll be as quick as I possibly can in my commentary. Now, this bump stock thing, the Supreme Court, this was a ban on bump stocks. And if you don't know what bump stocks are, it's the preferred reloading weapon of mass shooters. And that's why that's basically why they took it off the market. So why would the Supreme Court lift the ban on that? Your thoughts, Joe?
My question: why are they doing all this lifting of a lot of stuff and changing things? But I get what you're saying.
Who's it benefit?
It's benefiting all those people that are paying, those donors.
Right. The majority of them, NRA, tend to be right wingers.
You know, I haven't been the same since there's a channel. It might have been redacted, and I'm almost positive it was. A couple of years ago, they had gave a download or PowerPoint of all the political people and the stocks that they get, all the House of Representatives, everyone. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I'm just done. It's over with. They get everything. Mm-hmm. So you talking about inside trading? They had the nerve to be, people had the nerve to be upset with Martha Stewart. I'm like, all these folks, just round them up, should be going to jail.
Right.
If that's the case.
Right. It ran rampant in Congress for a little while. There was a whole slew of them that was accused of insider trading.
I mean, because they have all the stocks, they got all that. And it makes sense they would have the information. So,
right, absolutely.
Like, we're doomed when it comes to that. You just on your own.
But again, the purpose for this, like I said, they say we don't have a seat at the table. But again, they call this Clarence Thomas's court. So the court is when they mean it's Clarence Thomas's court, it means the court is more leaning to the decisions of that guy. And that guy right now is Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, he don't represent us.
Right.
Unfortunately.
My point exactly. He does not represent us. And you'll see as we go along.
ATF had stuck with its earlier interpretation. Now that the situation is clear, Congress can act. Congresswoman, is this gaslighting? Justice Alito, as well as anyone, knows how difficult it is going to be to pass gun reform legislation. Do you foresee Congress acting on this ahead of the election? And if it does, are you worried that any action would simply be invalidated by this court on the ground that those reform measures violate the Second Amendment?
Yeah, I'm sure Justice Alito will come up with some other explanation as to why, even if Congress did act, why that law is unconstitutional in some way. I'm sure the Second Amendment and all of those gun manufacturers will win again. Listen, we know that this is the most ineffective and unproductive Congress in the history of Congresses. We know that nothing is getting through, and we absolutely know that when it comes down to anything that has to do with guns, they're beholden to those corporations instead of being beholden to the people that actually put them into power. And so if we don't make this a big issue, and I think that you're absolutely right, what Democrats right now are doing is we're trying to tie together all these issues, and at the center and core of these problems is the Supreme Court. So I think that it's not a matter of talking about them separately, but it's about tying in regrowth.
And that's the one point of it. The center of the whole problem, the whole nucleus of this is the Supreme Court. The kids can take, and as they have done, they in the lower courts, in the Supreme Courts, and history shows that, if you start with the state and local courts, and then you get to the Supreme Court, if it's stopped by, in this case, Trump, who's the court leaning towards? Florida, a case in Florida, Amy Coney, but Judge Cannon, she's a Trump supporter. She helps Trump out whenever she possibly can. The Supreme Court is the same way.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not only Supreme Court, it's the lower courts as well. When she says it's about the election, that's exactly what she's meaning. I just today I was out at an event. One of the local churches here was holding dare I say, fish fry and rib dinner sale, and one of the local politicians running for sheriff showed up. So I did an impromptu interview with my phone, but I'll try and get it uploaded a little bit later on. But I'm going to have you on the show sometime this next week. But the question I asked him is, what do you think about what's going on in the political arena with the Supreme Court? And it was kind of, we really couldn't get a real conversation because there was a lot of, back chat. So, but I'll have a lot of questions for him. Just put it that way. So.
Okay.
But anyway, it's good to see a young black man into politics running for change here in Dorchester County. It's a county that I live in, so that's what would be the guy I'll be speaking to, just like Jasmine Crockett here. You're having a difficult time hearing me, ABT? So am I borging out?
At times.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
right.
what she hears on the playback, but yeah.
Yeah. How bad is the borging? To be honest, if I need to stop, I'll just need to stop it. I would rather do that than to be unprofessional.
It's a little. When it's more, I'll let you know. Because the first one time I said it was 5 seconds. I'm like, uh-oh. But you start playing the clip.
That was the 5 seconds you said?
Yes.
Okay, but I'm wondering why is the clip playing and I'm borging out? I don't know. You remember I told you I got the new router, but I'm still having the same problem. But I continue this, folks. My apologies if I'm borging in and out.
To the Supreme Court, tying in diversity, equity, and inclusion to the Supreme Court, LGBTQIA, as well as climate change. All of these issues, when we see the decimation of them, they're at the hands of this rogue court.
Right, Michael, speaking of and being in the beholden to corporate interests, highly recommended. You note that there's an interesting dynamic going on between Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Thomas. You say that, quote, Roberts holds the gavel, but Thomas holds the power. Can you say more about that dynamic between these two lions of the right?
Well, this is very important, folks. I want you to listen to this. He says, one justice holds the gavel, but the other justice, meaning Justice Thomas, holds the power. That's more important.
These courts the name of the Chief Justice, but right now Clarence Thomas and his ideas, the idea of the way he puts it as originalism, that only laws that are rooted in, quote, history and tradition, meaning the social views of property-owning white men from the 1700s, can govern our country today, that has become dominant. And sometimes Roberts can muster a majority to slow down the direction of the court, but Thomas's energy to push it and push the country in unrecognizable directions is really much more significant in the long run, I think, for this court.
So Roberts is really just a traffic cop, but Justice Thomas is sort of the intellectual heft of the conservative movement on the court?
And I think he was considered to be way at the fringe for years, but now the fringe has become the mainstream on this court. And it's not just bad ideas, but he's entangled in this right-wing political and financial machine in ways that are also highly unusual.
A massive impact on the American judiciary.
A decisive moment.
Clarence Thomas, Amy Coney Barrett. Folks, do you know how big this is? This is huge.
Presiding over the ceremony, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas.
Solemnly swear
That I will support and defend the Constitution. Amy Coney Barrett had chosen Thomas to swear her in. So help me.
so help me God.
Folks, that is quite unusual right there, folks. For not the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, who normally swears in the Supreme Court Justice. In this case, Amy Coney Barrett, which was chosen by Donald Trump, and the other right-wingers insisted that this man, Clarence Thomas, swear her in. Very unusual.
That is.
Go ahead, Shar.
Maybe he's that some of that 50 million, you know, maybe that's him doing a little work. I don't know. Not for certain.
When say it's like the transfer of power. This is supposed to be the transfer of power to Clarence Thomas. This is now what they're considering the Thomas Court. With the inauguration of Amy Coney Barrett, because she was the one to give the Supreme Court the majority of those folks that think like Clarence Thomas.
Okay, so that's why she. Okay.
That's the significance of this.
It's a moment of victory for Clarence Thomas. He's now become the center of the court. And I think he would say he won. Justice Thomas has developed into one of the leading lights on the court, if not the leading lights. This is why it's often referred to as the Thomas Court now. He really is sort of the ideological and intellectual center of gravity on the court. In the front row, Thomas's wife, Jenny. It was a moment.
Right in the front row. So I'll ask you folks again, do Black people, as we see them, do we have a seat at the table? Well, there's documented proof that we do have a seat at the table, just not for the right purposes. There is a Black man that isn't quite, that has a whole lot of power. His name is Clarence Thomas. Okay.
Okay.
Say that again, ABT. That's Clarence Thomas' career. Because before he met this woman, he was struggling. And this conspiracist right here, she has always been that way. Since the age of 12, she's always been one of those far conspiracist kind of chicks, because she grew up with her parents. Remember, Shar, let me know when I start boarding, okay? But remember, there was a time where I talked about Clarence Thomas, and the news was talking about Clarence Thomas, where he said that him and his wife don't talk about politics at the dinner table.
Yes, I remember that.
Remember that?
Yes.
But now, as I was doing my research, and again, you folks I didn't use the whole clip, so you folks can go in and go down to the description box, and you can see to where there's a point of it to where she says she grew up, the mother, the father, and all their siblings and all that, they used to sit around the table and literally talk politics. So do you not think, as from a child to an adult, that she did not take that on into her adult life?
Yeah, of course she did.
Sitting at the dinner table talking about politics is normal for her, isn't it? Because that's how she grew up.
Yeah, in it, married to it. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Right. But let Clarence Thomas tell us they don't talk about it. And again, absolutely right there, ABT. She is Clarence Thomas's, Jenny Thomas is her Barbara Bush. Or in another case of Bill Clinton to what Hillary Clinton was, Hillary Rodham Clinton. Women, powerful white women that built these powerful men. You can dislike them, unlike them, or whatever you say, but they built these men. Let's continue.
Momentous moment. Jenny Thomas is as good as any, maybe the best embodiment of the American right today. And on the far right, her politics are all about this politics of fear and anger. That's Jenny Thomas. Two powerful conservatives on the court and in politics, pursuing a shared vision.
This duo of Clarence Thomas and Jenny Thomas They are the it couple of the far right.
2 lives shaped by history.
Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
Politics
The American women do not want ERA. They do not want abortion.
and race.
Affirmative
Now-
action is not equality.
Now, folks, let me ask you something. If you talk about a tale of 2 cities from 2 different worlds, how do you think Clarence Thomas ended up in the world of Jeannie Lamb? That was her name at one point in time. How do those 2 worlds collide? Growing up, Jeannie Lamb grew up in a white conservative right-wing family. This man grew up in damn near poverty. Let him tell it. Grew up in abusive poverty. Let him tell it. Thoughts, Shaw?
No thoughts.
Leaving an indelible mark on America.
The conservative majority overturning Roe versus Wade, the right to choose abortion.
Challenging the use of race in college admissions, which could have an impact on affirmative action.
In a nation freighted with division and upheaval, the Thomases have found their limit.
They are one of
Affirmative action. The right for women to choose. 2 things that these 2 people you saw on the screen would absolutely, that both were brought up. Jeannie Thomas was brought up to think that a board in a bit. Did I board just now? Sure. Am I good now?
Yeah. You're good now.
Okay. All right. Jeannie Thomas was brought up to believe that the woman's place was in the home and no place else. But, you know, her mother was in the political. She followed her mother's footsteps. Mother before her. All of these were outspoken. That's exactly it. The Confederate widows of the South. That's how I see Jeannie Thomas. So what would make this white woman end up with Clarence Thomas? That would be my question.
I'm sure he always wanted one, but I get what you're saying. And I will say this overturn overnight, and I say overnight because, you know, you just got ready, got up in the morning, got ready for work, maybe on a Tuesday, and then you're hearing, oh, you don't have a right to do this anymore. What? Why? I mean, it's not an election year. I mean, what's going on here?
That's crazy, isn't it? Good pickup, Sean. Thank you for that one. Let's continue.
the same in how they look at
Don't be mad, Super Slide.
their opponents. It's a war with the other side.
He came up poor, very poor, from a marginal community. They talk about marginalized and underrepresented communities. Well, the Geechee dialect speaking, Sea Island dwelling poor black people of the 1950s, which is when he was coming along, were as marginal, I can imagine, as you could get within the context of American society.
Tenement. We shared a kitchen with other tenants, and we had a common bathroom in the backyard, which was unworkable and unusable. It was hard, but it was all we had and all there was.
His father left early and moved away. His mother was a single mother. His mother married many times. He didn't have her.
Uh-oh, Sean.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Single mother, blame the mother. But it's funny, you know, that part came up, but you don't hear them talking about Clarence Thomas's mother. You know what I mean by them, right?
Yes.
You don't hear them calling out Clarence Thomas's mother, do they?
No.
Mm-mm. Actually, she didn't. You will find out to come later on that Clarence Thomas's mother did not really raise Clarence Thomas or Clarence Thomas's brother. They were raised by their grandparents. BGS. You forgot to put that little tidbit in your history books. She said them Rim brothers.
Relationship with any of not his biological dad or any that came afterwards.
His mom has talked to me about how that was a very bleak period of her life when she had to do it. You know, she said, but I had to do what I had to do.
Desperate, Clarence's mother, Viola Williams, gave up the boys, sending them to live at their grandfather's house.
Clarence had been rescued from a life of poverty and ended up in a house that had a toilet, and his ability to go to school.
With his grandfather, Myers Anderson.
Now, before we go further with this short, let me ask you something. If you think, if you ran into this guy that was not good with women, that was shy, that really never opened up, but eventually he opened up to you, don't you think this guy would tell you about his entire life of how bad it was, how to grow up in white girl, because he felt comfortable around you?
Yes.
Yeah. I would think so. If this was like his first or second girlfriend, you would think that everything that when he was talking to this woman, he would be telling the truth about his life in general, whether it was a good life or a bad life, right?
Right.
Yeah. So this woman that we see talking on the screen here, she's talking about Clarence Thomas because she dated Clarence Thomas.
Okay.
So I take her as a credible source of what she's saying.
Yes.
Challenges.
He was tough. He was hard. I don't think empathy might have been his strongest point.
I interviewed Clarence Thomas's mother. She described that the grandfather would lock Clarence Thomas and his little brother in the hall closet and not let them out for punishment. And he hit them with a belt quite routinely. His grandfather beat the two boys quite often, whenever it was that they didn't do something fast enough or well enough. He was physically, mentally, verbally abusive to both of the boys. Probably the unhappiest that he's ever been in his life was the time that he spent in his grandfather's house.
Savannah would have been divided on racial lines. And when I say that, don't just think that I'm talking white, black. We had racial lines among the black community.
They had the brown bag rule. Your complexion. He is either equal to the brown bag or lighter. Anything darker, it was ridiculed or derogated in some way.
Folks, Charlotte, am I Borgen? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, this part here, this color thing, this brown bag thing, I think this is the part that fueled the anger in Clarence Thomas. I think as a child that he was picked on because of his skin color. This was the fuel to the fire that said he was going to get even with you black folks.
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking when I was hearing this. I'm like, oh, this his get back. I'm gonna get you.
Right. Right. Absolutely, it is. Internalized oppression. Absolutely is. Good analogy there. Absolutely is. This is the beginning of his hatred for us. Even though he looks like us, he does not want to be one of us. Nothing about, as we travel into this, Sir Ashar, I said I know it's going to try and keep this at an hour, but I think we might go over that. Nothing about what we're about to see would identify this man as being in black world. Absolutely nothing from this point on that we're about to see here that would identify other than he tried to escape black world as much as he possibly could.
Yep. He got all the ideas and everything.
His autobiography.
I'm sorry, Sean, go ahead, say that again.
Oh, I'm just saying all those ideas and stuff that he was reading about that the palm color people have, he's using them.
Exactly. Absolutely is. He modeled himself after them.
Yep.
And folks say, I heard some folks calling him an Uncle Tom. Never call Clarence Thomas an Uncle Tom. If you want to call him something, call him Sambo, call him Yassabos, but never call him Uncle Tom. I'll say this again. Uncle Tom was a hero to black folks. Sambo was not. Sambo was the guy that would tell on you. Sambo was the guy that would call master and say, hey, boss.
Yeah, he's telling. All right, so if we don't hear you, go ahead and play the clip.
Most of the insults aimed at me had to do with the darkness of my skin, the flatness of my nose, the kinkiness of my hair, and the way I talked. Such racial slurs stung all the more for having come from my own people.
The issues of class and race have always been at the heart of how Thomas has seen himself. That's the prison.
Clarence was, frankly, never comfortable around the black people in Georgia. Clarence had been ridiculed by the children in that area around Pinpoint, and he was nicknamed ABC for America's Blackest Child. So,
folks, I can tell you something. If you grew up in the South in the 60s, in the 70s, and part of the 80s, if you were a dark-skinned child, chances are you was called ABC at one time or the other.
Wow, I've never heard of that term. I have never heard that term before today.
Well, I have, because I'm a dark-skinned man, so I've heard that term before. That's not unusual for me to hear other black folks, especially down in the South here, growing up in Charleston. I heard that a lot. ABC, what that mean? America's Black Child, or ABK, America's Black Kid. After a while, you either, like they say, like a duck in water, you either let it wash off your back, or like in Clarence Thomas's case, it fueled him to be as mad as he possibly could at us.
Wow.
Let's continue.
from an early age, Clarence really felt estranged, I think, from his entire community.
The resentment and anger that can provoke within the darker skinned and blacker individuals also not so pretty. It's a psychologically debilitating aspect of African American experience, this kind of class, color prejudice that operates amongst Black Americans.
Now, I don't know if any of you picked up on this so far, but have you noticed the hue of Clarence Thomas's friends and girlfriends?
Oh yeah, he was getting closer and closer till he got what he
Okay.
like ding 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 bingo.
Right. All of his friends were at the test. The only one that stood out in the crowd of those friends was who?
Mhm. Yeah.
Who that? My name Clarence.
I guess the thing I remember most about Clarence is him as an altar boy. Whenever father needed to find altar boys, all my classmates and all would hide. Clarence would volunteer.
He had a grandfather who was a devout Catholic and wanted him to have the Catholic experience.
His grandfather paid $20 a year for Clarence to attend St. Benedict's School.
Our teachers the nuns were called the nuns in Savannah. In other words, they were assigned to educate black kids.
Whatever our circumstances, the nuns treated us all with respect and insisted.
I didn't want to say that. You know, Catholics.
What I do know that
Sure.
woman ain't that I know that woman ain't smiling in the picture, so I disagree
Did
with.
she-
Oh, they treated us well.
Do she look friendly in that picture?
Not at all.
Not at all. Does she look like she want to be in that picture?
Not at all.
Mm.
I think some things happened to this man, and he's angry at his mother too. So he got have had a lot of issues. So it's carried him on to his adult age, and yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of bad things happened to him too, Shaw. I would have to agree with you. I think a lot of bad things happened to him. I think it's all centered. I think everything about him in this clip that I have there, that everything about his life was centered around racial, whether it be from white folks or black folks. He just took it in decades.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
That we do our best, though some of them insisted harder than others. One of the nuns paid special attention to Clarence. Sister Mary Virgilius, my 8th grade teacher, took a no-nonsense, high expectations approach to teaching. With why she got the most out of me.
I think his nurturing came from them because it wasn't coming from his immediate family. I don't think he had the nurturing of parents and whatever you would normally get, and the nuns and the priests provided that for him.
The Catholic Church can be a refuge from everything else that's going on in your life. I wanted to be a nun before I hit puberty. And so it was not surprising to me that he would want to go into the seminary.
The people of Georgia.
It's called Gullah Geechee.
When they greeted people, they say, "How una tatu?"
We used to call it Pidgin English, but I think it was a French flavor to it.
As one of only 2 black students attending a high school seminary, the vestiges of that dialect made him a target.
Well, Shawn, am I okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, you're okay.
While I'm speaking, could without me telling you, could you tell that I'm from Charleston, South Carolina?
No.
No. So I don't. But so I don't understand why folks say that because you're of the Geechee Gullah community, by your speech identifies who you are. According to my lineage, I'm a part of that Geechee Gullah community.
Oh.
Hostility towards the black people, because every once in a while I might slip and speak like a Charlestonian speaks. I won't say slip, but this is just my natural diction because I read.
Okay.
It's not Geechee Gullah is. It make it sound like it's such a bad thing, but it's not. That doesn't identify you. Nobody can identify you with it until you tell them, I'm from the Geechee Gullah. I'm from the Geechee Gullah Islands. Nobody could identify that with me, not from the way I speak.
Mm.
Not only does it remind everybody around him that he's different, it also reminds them that he's of a lower caste. It has to be monumental for him.
Father Coleman told me matter-of-factly that I didn't speak standard English, and that I would have to learn how to talk properly if I didn't want to be.
That's the problem. You allow folks to set the standard of who you are. And even just now, she even said it without realizing it, that we as Geechee Gullah people are considered a lower standard. So no wonder Clarence Thomas tried to hide his identity. Thoughts on that, Sean?
No, but this is really this had to be a tough time for black people. That's all I'm thinking. What I'm looking at, this is really a very tough time. I wrote in the chat room, it was just a joke, that this must have been the time where all the families were together and married and happy and all that stuff.
What time was that?
This time right here.
Wait a minute now. According to a Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, he didn't have it so good in the black family. His mama dropped him off to be raised by his who?
Well, see, she didn't choose better. See, she need to.
No. But wait a minute. Let Congressman Byron Donald say it before, but back in the 50s, back in the Jim Crow era, everything was all right. The black family was together.
Yeah, that's why I just threw that out there. It's a joke.
Good observation. Sometimes they don't hear you till you slap them in the mouth.
Yeah, and ABT grandparents abuse. I mean, they were married, so didn't sound too happy to me if they did all that. Kept a man in the closet or a young boy in the closet and all that, and beating on him.
Right.
Oh, great times. Oh, great marriage.
Right, great time.
Right.
That's a great
Submissive.
life.
Ooh,
right. And, right. Where did daddy go? We don't know.
Okay. But you can continue, kind of off course.
All right. No, that's cool. Listen, that's prove your point. And we just shut down that argument of talking about the family was all right back in the 60s. Hey, Vonda, how you doing? Welcome
Hey,
in.
Lady V.
Thought in fury. His blunt words hit me like a slap in the face.
That moment stuck with him for the rest of his life.
Clarence, when he got really relaxed, would revert to some of those ways of phrasing and that accent. But he was always extremely conscious of how he pronounced words because he had been forced to do that.
When the justice was on the high court, he was famous for not speaking during oral argument. And one of the explanations he would offer for that was because he was embarrassed about how he talked. That was so far in the past that no one who knows the present day Clarence Thomas.
I know some folks may not remember this time in American history, but during the confirmations for Clarence Thomas to become to sit on the Supreme Court, one of the questions was asked, and he actually said this in open court, that he was not comfortable with public speaking. He actually said this in public. You folks might hear some jazz in the background over there. Got Jeff D playing a little jazz for me in the background. So I try to turn down low enough to wouldn't bother you folks. But every once in a while, you might hear a little jazz pop up in the background. So don't worry about it. Big shout out to you, Jeff D. But anyway, sure. Again, we see him slowly but surely trying to get away from Black America, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Doing a pretty good job of it, didn't he?
Yes, yes.
What's that show? Let me put this down. His mother took welfare and then kicked him out the house.
Yeah, I was just teasing ABT. She had asked where Daddy go. It's like, you don't know where you went? You know what happened.
She got welfare and kicked him out of the house. Not only she kicked the daddy out, ABT, she kicked out the boys too. Sent them to the granddaddy. All of y'all get out. Let's continue. There go another one of Clarence. Passing the bag. Colored folks
would think that would be a concern of his, but it indeed was. That would be a concern of his, but it indeed was.
His days living in the White Seminary shaped him in other ways too.
He was in a dormitory living on that campus, so it had to be tough. You know, when somebody.
Now, y'all saw a look at that cemetery, right? Didn't it look like it was in the woods somewhere?
Oh, yeah. They had a good time with him.
Right. That looked like a place that you want to get out of line being Black.
Shoot. I know I want to go outside after dark. That's for sure.
Outside? No, Clarence Thomas. But again, the overall thing about this, look at Clarence Thomas as a whole, folks. He was rejected by Black world in every aspect of his life. Through his parents. His mother abandoned him. His Black daddy didn't want him. His Black grandfather treated him like shit. Black folks in his community called him the ADC, you know. But the only time he got any love or respect is when he was around who?
When he started changing his rhetoric, okay. When he started talking like them, they embraced him.
Exactly. They embraced him. Before that, he was an outcast. Am I correct, Shar?
Yes.
But when they molded him and shaped him to being what they wanted him to be, that's when they accepted him. So far, is that what you see?
Yeah, that's exactly what I see.
Let's continue.
Somebody says something derogatory to you in that environment, you got to deal with it because you're there 24/7.
Good night before he'd go to sleep now and then, you know, there'd be a laughter in the room and someone say, Clarence, smile so we can see you, that kind of thing.
When they put the lights out at night, his peers would shout like for hours at night, keep him up.
After he entered the major seminary, one event would become a turning point.
I have some very sad news for all of you and people who love peace all over the world. And that is that Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight.
After Martin Luther King is assassinated, that day he hears his fellow seminarians say, "Good, I hope the SOB dies." You know, it's crushing to him. It's absolutely crushing.
Well, let me ask you something there, Clarence Thomas. If you ever see this video, Why was you surprised? If they would chant to keep you up in the middle of the night, the N-word over and over and over, if they would say racial epithets to you, smile so I can see you, why would you be surprised in 1960 something when Martin Luther King was assassinated, I think 1968, why would you be surprised that you, as a black man in a white seminary, in a time of racial inequality, would be surprised that those white folks in that building would say, good? Why would you be surprised? Share your thoughts on that?
He will never answer that question.
Of course he wouldn't, because he couldn't, because you shouldn't be. I wouldn't be surprised. Listen, again, being transparent, when I went to high school, in my English class, in my chemistry class, in other classes, I was the only black kid. So you know that you know how many times a black joke would come up and I couldn't say anything. Could you imagine going through a whole year of being in the English class and the white teacher never calling on you once?
Oh, wow.
If that went unnoticed? A whole year of English teacher called on me once.
Wow.
Let's continue.
Our hero is murdered and you're dancing on his grave, so to speak. These are not my people, the people who would dance on his grave. What am I doing with them? Where am I? Who am I? This kind of thing. You begin to ask yourself, what am I buying into here?
I tore off the beliefs I had learned from the nuns. I knew what was wrong, who to blame for it, and what to do about it. I was an angry black man.
That seminary was too much for him. He had to leave. It was heart-wrenching. Not only did he leave the religion that sustained him, but he was also living there. And so he had to go back to this household where he was treated like a dog.
He was treated like a dog? I can imagine some of the comments. See? You thought you was going to make it in a white world, didn't you? You found out you wasn't nothing but an N-word, huh? You found out the white folks don't really like you like that, huh, Clarence?
Oh.
Huh, Chuck?
They didn't say that, not that loving couple, when, you know, the loving couple was together and families were doing well and thriving. Stop it.
Right. They didn't pick on him like that. They didn't, you know, that wasn't my bad. I don't know what I was thinking. Was I overstretching my boundaries a little bit, Sean?
You got to keep them talking points together now. Watch it.
All right. Let's continue.
Had to be tremendously painstaking. You're going to disappoint so many people. Your grandfather, the black community, the black Catholic community in Savannah. All these people are looking for you to be the first black priest.
And the grandfather saying, what? You're leaving the seminary. You know, you're out of my house. I'm cutting you off. You're not going to be supported. And again, Thomas is abandoned, right? He's left alone. He's left to fend for himself.
Imagine that, folks. Your grandpa wants you to be be a devout Catholic, wants you to be the first black Catholic priest. And you come back and you say, hey, Grandpa, you know, this is not what I thought it was. These folks don't like me. He does, doesn't he? He does look like his granddad, doesn't he? Just a little bit more rounded face. But I would imagine I would imagine as he get older, his face will start flattening out too. But imagine going back and his grandmother and his grandfather, pops not being sympathetic to his cause of why he left the seminary. Instead of saying grandpa, they treated me like I was a nobody, like I was. His grandpa was used to this. His grandpa's a Yasabas. His grandpa believed that white folks shit didn't stink. This is the danger to our community right here. He was so much willing to be, so much to try to be like one of them, that he would throw another black person under the bus just to be included with them. To be one of them.
I'm finished helping you, he said. You'll have to figure it out yourself. You'll probably end up like your no-good daddy or those other no-good pinpoint Negroes.
Instead of the grandfather being sympathetic and compassionate and loving and hugging him and saying, I love you no matter what, or whatever a normal person would do, he excoriated him and told him that he was a failure and expressed his dire disappointment.
Over the years, Thomas would downplay this image of his grandfather and express admiration for the man who gave him a home as a child.
I want y'all to look at this. So far, there's not been a pretty picture painted of the life with his grandfather. Am I correct? Sure.
Not at all. None.
So why would you come up with a book that say My Grandfather's Son?
Maybe what he's actually saying, without saying it, is I'm hateful and grouchy just like him. It's on the inside of me.
Yeah, but the book doesn't paint that. The book paints him as somewhat of guiding him. The reason why he's what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Wouldn't sell the other way, maybe.
Right, wouldn't sell. Say that again.
Yeah, I'm thinking the book wouldn't sell, but seriously, sometimes people, they are that way. It's internal. They're torturing. They deal with a lot of torture inside, a lot of harsh feelings, memories, all those type of things. So, just to mention the grandfather, this man is still struggling. You can't tell me he isn't. Those things are haunting him.
Definitely is. Yeah, it really is. He's trying to save that life that he didn't have with his grandfather, or the disrespect that was shown to him by his grandfather. It didn't affect him. Didn't affect how he looked at black people. I think he's completely wrong. I think that the life that he lived with his grandfather was the crux of why he hates black people so much.
Right. There's a big part of it.
Let's continue.
The grandfather is in the title of his autobiography, My Grandfather's Son. That's how he thought of himself. But the picture that he paints in that book is completely the opposite of how Clarence described his grandfather to me.
Now, right there, let me leave that screen dark for a minute, because it grows dark for a second there, folks. Here we have Clarence Thomas, all in white world. All of a sudden, he's now Clarence X, because his hero got killed. And white world disappointed. Black world disappointed. So he turns to the angry black militant. Check it out for yourself.
So, my thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago and let you in there.
Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't because of Martin Luther King getting killed. He turned into the angry black militant because this man got assassinated. Robert Kennedy Jr. It's what turned him into the angry black militant. that one of his white heroes was assassinated. Look for yourself.
One day I turned on the radio while making my sandwich. I heard that Bobby Kennedy had been shot.
Oh my God, Senator Kennedy has been shot.
I fell to my knees and burst into tears.
God. That's it, Reaper, get it. Get the gun, Reaper. Okay, now hold on to the guy.
I felt the blind, self-destructive rage that haunted so many of the people I knew.
The crowd is running. The police are chasing them into Jackson, into Grant Park.
Surely the time for politeness and nonviolent protest was over. Look what it had done for Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy.
We aren't going to put up with their nonsense, with their irrationality, with their murder any longer.
The more injustice I saw, the angrier I became.
We're going to shoot the cops who are shooting our black brothers in the back in this country. That's what.
And the angrier I became, the more injustice I saw. And the more I read about the Black Power movement, the more I wanted to be a part of it.
Wasima Tusinda Bila Shaka, which means we shall conquer without a doubt. Black Power.
Now, let me go.
Clarence Thomas.
Let me pause it right here. From what we know about Clarence Thomas today, how many of you folks was aware this was in Clarence Thomas's past? That he was a black militant?
No.
How many of you folks seen this for the first time would have ever think that Clarence Thomas was a part of the Black Power movement?
Nope. Wouldn't have thought it.
All at the behest of who getting killed? Not an important black man. It's Martin Luther King. He didn't fall to his knees.
And he cried. Boo-hoo. Tears.
Okay. That was him. That was Clarence X. That's what he called himself, Clarence X. Can't make this up. I used the words of Kevin Samuels, since they like hearing it from time to time. You can't make this shit up.
Budding campus radical would pursue his education elsewhere. He received a scholarship to a private college in Massachusetts.
Now, again, let me ask you, how does Clarence X go from black militant to a scholarship at Holy Cross? Folks, when you have some time, I want you to go look up Holy Cross and tell me, how did those two worlds collide? Huh?
At the point when Clarence Thomas got into Holy Cross, the school was actually actively looking for black students. The president of Holy Cross, Johnny Brooks, who set up this program.
Y'all didn't think I was going to leave you in suspense very long. There it is. Affirmative action. That's how you got to Holy Cross. Affirmative action. So what's that again? ABT. Let me see what she said here. So he is the spook who sat by the door. That's right. He is that guy that sat by the door that told on everybody that came in. Psst, look what he got. Hey, massa. Hey, bosses, we sick? Affirmative action.
Program described it as affirmative action. That's what opened the doors for him.
Holy Cross. Catholic. All male.
Holy Cross. Catholic. all male. This is the 1960s. What is the chances of a guy from Savannah, from a broken home, and an abusive grandfather, that a crackhead mama, that a daddy they nowhere around, is going to end up at Holy Cross without affirmative action? Sean, you want to help me out on this?
You cut that out. You know he took himself, picked him up by the bootstraps.
But bootstraps?
Yeah, you gotta stop that.
Okay.
More than 2,000 white students, 27 black students, many of them as frustrated as Clarence was.
No, I was pissed off. I had evolved from being hopeful to being pissed off. A lot of young people in America was pissed off, and they weren't seeking a reconciliation. Okay, they're seeking a coup. Change the whole thing.
We all involved in it. I was involved in the protests. He was. Literally everybody went up there. And we, those of us from the South, we were right there with them saying, yeah, man, we want to push.
He definitely was inspired by the Black Panthers. He dressed like them. He talked like them. He had a beret. He had...
Wait a minute. Did I hear him say that he talked like them, he walked like them, he dressed like them, the Black Panthers? If you were so much into Black empowerment, how do you end up like this, Clarence Thomas? How do you hate affirmative action so much? How do you hate Roe versus Wade so much? How do you hate black people so much? Show your thoughts.
It's internal. There's some demons and things inside of him.
He fighting some terrible demons, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been through a lot. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Army fatigues, and he had the army boots.
He wore an afro. He was out there with everyone else. I think it was positive because he had a group. He wasn't alone now. And he became part of his group.
I don't know if he had a well-formed political philosophy.
See, I hate to keep interrupting, but this is the ties that bind sometimes. If you go back, when you hit the link for the continuation of this, you will see that his wife was always looking for a sense of belonging. Now it seems that Clarence Thomas is always looking for a sense of belonging. He's always looking to fit in somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to fit in with the Catholic folks. He didn't fare well there. As a young man, he tried to fit in with his neighborhood. He didn't fare well there. Now here he is trying to fit in with the Black Panthers. And for a while, he does pretty good. So why do you fall off, Clarence? What took you off the path of Black empowerment? What took you down the road to meeting Jeannie?
Before he got to Holy Cross, maybe he was simply going along. But the years, 1968, 1969, gosh, I was there. And the forces of conformity to a sense of outraged fury, resistance, the throwing off of oppression by any means necessary. It was very seductive. It was very compelling to many, many people, among whom was Clarence Thomas.
And he had a hero, Malcolm X.
We want freedom by any means necessary. We want justice by...
Judge Clarence Thomas, my question to you would be, if you've ever answered this, if you ever see this video, how could you now be the person that you are today and call this man your hero? There's no way. Char?
No comments.
any means necessary. We want equality by any means necessary.
He had a poster of Malcolm X in his dorm room.
Justice Thomas boasted at one point he had read all of his speeches. And he said at one time he could quote you some of them by heart. I mean, so he really did pay attention to Malcolm X.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Clarence Thomas's activism culminated in his junior year as protests broke out 40 miles away in Harvard Square.
An estimated 2,000 radical students from the greater Boston area decided to march to Cambridge and continue demonstrating.
We dragged our way to Harvard Square, where our disorderly parade deteriorated into a full-scale riot.
The demonstration then turned into the most extreme civil disorder in Cambridge history. 4,000 students against 2,000 police.
The police fired rounds of tear gas into the crowd, but that didn't deter us, and we kept on rioting well into the night. I got back to campus at 4 in the morning, horrified by what I'd just done.
All over the United States yesterday, there were anti-war protests, most of them peaceful. One was not at Harvard University last night.
Nearly 200 people were injured. 40 students were arrested.
I had let myself be swept up by an angry mob for no good reason, other than that I too was angry.
There's certainly somebody talks about it like, here I am at Harvard Square and like this mini riot. Like, what am I doing here, right? What am I doing?
He was conflicted about what he'd done, who he was, what he stood for.
I don't think anything about Clarence Thomas is simple. I mean, he's a bundle of contradictions, and it seems like there's just.
Isn't that a contradiction in itself? You're at a rally for equality, basically, but here you are questioning the very reason why you're there.
If somebody beat you, it brings back those memories of Grandpa, and he's like, "Oh hell no, I'm done with this."
Right. You got the hell on, Sharp?
You got the hell on.
That's not funny, but you know, you might have a point there. Wait a minute. Y'all didn't tell me there was gonna be dogs and shit.
Always so much inner tension within him. Yes, he was radical like his peers, but not as radical. And he broke with them in various ways. And he's always breaking with whatever the dominant political trope is. He says, you know, he's always talking about how he's not going to do what's fashionable. He wants to be different.
He set about remaking himself. Gone was the Black Panther uniform. Proving his grandfather wrong, he excelled at school, graduating near the top of his class. And the next day, he married his college girlfriend, Kathy Ambush.
Hey there, Black Hawk. How you doing? Hey, did you folks notice that? Gone was the Black Panther uniforms. He got all the way back into white world again, except for one thing. He had to find him a suitable mate. Y'all check out the reason why he married this woman.
I asked him, why did you marry her? And he said, because she was the first woman who was nice to me. He always had a problem with women. He regarded himself as not attractive at all. He regarded women as being pretty mean to him or indifferent to him. And this was the first woman who did not show that. So he married her.
I
would like to thank my husband Fred for letting me come today. I love to say that because it irritates the women's livers more than anything that I say.
Phyllis Schlafly was a colorful, dynamic, anti-feminist, right-wing reactionary.
As Ginny Lamp was growing up, Phyllis Schlafly was a role model. Her mother Marjorie was a prominent member of Schlafly's group.
The American women do not want ERA, they do not want abortion, they do not want lesbian privileges, and they do not want universal child care in the hands of the government.
What she saw in Phyllis Schlafly and her mom was no excuses. You don't need affirmative action. You don't need women's kind of...
Now, again, I'll say from what Clarence Thomas so far, how does him, the life that he lived, the turmoil, how does he get involved with a woman that has such a set of conservative parents that it's obvious there's no black folks at that dinner table? Sure, your thoughts?
I don't know the answer, but I guess it's like yesterday. How did that palm color get on the panel using
Yeah.
N-word?
How the hell did that happen? Who in the hell left the gate open and let Clarence Thomas in? Because these two worlds here so far, I don't see. I know they say folks live on a frequency, but I don't see the frequency here. Does anybody can make a connection to these two so far from what we've seen? Other than Clarence Thomas traveled in white world, but everything we've seen about his travels in white world so far is ended in what? Turmoil or disappointment. Am I right? Let's continue.
Special accommodations. You make your own fate, you create your own path, and you lean in. It doesn't have to be the liberal way. You can also do it the Republican way.
They were waging a battle against the ERA, Equal Rights Amendment.
This one woman, Schlafly, pretty much single-handedly stopped a whole movement and killed the Equal Rights Amendment. It really was an example of what you could do as a conservative woman leading a crusade.
And we can build this into a mighty movement that can set America on the right path. Then conquer we must. For our cause it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust.
Ginny's inspired.
The only religion that isn't considered as a religion, ladies and gentlemen, is called white supremacy. That's not my idea. I got that from Hidden Covers. The only religion that isn't classified as a religion is white supremacists, because that is white supremacist talk right there. ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. Here you had one white woman that destroyed a whole movement, not only for equal rights for women, equal rights for minorities, equal rights for blacks, equal rights for Latinos, equal rights across the board. Her mother did not want them. You don't think any of her mother's views rubbed off on Jeannie Lamb? Your thoughts, Shaw?
They talk at the dinner table every night.
He said they talked at the dinner table every night?
Yeah, so of course rubbed off on her. And she carried it on.
And she just carried on the legacy, didn't she?
Yeah.
I agree with you on that, Black Hawk. So let me read this right quick. Like, folks, again, let me know when I'm Borging so I can go ahead and press the thing. That way we can eliminate as much as I can. So don't be afraid to tell me that I'm Borging. It won't hurt my feelings at all. I'd much rather shut up and let it do what it do than to be talking, especially to myself. But anyway, let me read this comment here by Black Hawk. He says, the ninja thought he was too intelligent and he doesn't want to identify with black people. That's why he applied to an all-white college. I agree with that point right there. He does not want to identify with black people. Although his skin is, you put 8 o'clock in the morning together, you get midnight. Although his skin is that color, he does not want to be classified as a black man. He does not, I won't say classified. He does not want to be identified solely by his color. But as a black man, I know better. And most black men, we know better. That is the first thing they see when we walk in a room. Sure, your thoughts on that?
And that's even proven with how the police respond when they see a black man. So,
absolutely, it absolutely is. I just saw a video the other day where a policeman was hitting a guy with a baton, hit him with a stun gun and all kinds of stuff. This went on about 15, 20 minutes. No shots fired. Tamir Rice had 12 seconds. Rolando Castillo had 8 seconds. What's her name? Tatiana Ali had less than that. That's getting off subject here.
She wants to go into politics. She wants to go to law school. She wants to be like this and like her mom.
Jenny watched as her mom ran for the state legislature and wrote dozens of letters to the editor of the local newspaper.
Aren't you all getting sick and tired of the news media and liberals taking off in all directions to persecute Republicans, particularly President Nixon and Vice President Agnew? Mrs. Donald G. Lamb.
By 12, Jenny was writing her own letters.
I am 12 years old, but I don't understand why they can ban all products.
Now, what in the hell is a 12-year-old doing interested in politics? She's writing letters to the local newspaper, looking for a place to belong. She's looking for some place to be. That's why her and Clarence Thomas are soulmates, because they both were looking for something. They both were looking for a place to fit in. Two pieces of the puzzle finally came together, and they called themselves this power couple. And actually, they are. Jeannie quietly tells Clarence what to do. Your thoughts, Sean?
I agree with you.
With cyclamates in them when they aren't even sure they cause cancer. Why don't they ban cigarettes? They know cigarettes cause cancer. Jenny Lamb.
She would become a page at the Republican Women's Conference.
The great silent majority.
Following her mom to see Richard Nixon.
My fellow Americans, I ask for your support.
Instead of, as so many teenagers do, faced with that at that time, reject it and go get high and wear jeans and tell their parents to get out of here, she obviously embraced it and kept embracing it and never stopped embracing it. It's simply saying, yes, Mom and Dad, I'm just like you and I'm proud to be just like you.
In many families don't talk about politics at the dinner table, right? But that was important to her parents, and it leads to that manichaeistic view between good and evil. And if you look at things in terms of good and evil, you end up angry, you're bitter, you don't accept defeat.
Isn't that Jeannie Thomas and Clarence Thomas today? Isn't that Judge Alito on the Supreme Court? Isn't what we're hearing now? So when they say we don't have a seat at the table, yes, we do have a seat at the table, but the wrong person's at the table. There is a black man that's running the Supreme Court, and his name is Clarence Thomas. But the strings of the Supreme Court are being pulled by that lady you see on the screen right there. A young Jeannie Lamb, now AKA now known as Jeannie Thomas. She molded this man to become a Supreme Court justice because he had a dream. There's nothing wrong with having a dream, but it's a dream deferred when somebody else is in control of it. Your thoughts, Sean?
No thoughts. No thoughts.
And so it takes you to a really dark place when politics is your focus.
To the tables down at Mori.
After Holy Cross, Clarence Thomas was off to a very different world once again. Yale Law School. It was a chance to leave Pinpoint far behind, defy his grandfather's prophecy, and get positioned to make real money.
Again, correct me if I'm wrong with this, Sean. Let me know if I'm working, but correct me if I'm wrong with this. Everything so far that we've seen has been, the course of his life to me has been shaped by two things: his grandfather and his this idea of being accepted into white world.
Yes.
You
That
think
could
so?
sum it up. Yeah, I would sum it up that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he does have. I think Clarence Thomas does have one son, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to use the allegedly here, Black Hawk. Allegedly, either the son is in jail or has been in jail, and I don't think Clarence Thomas really gives two sheets to the wind about who and what his son has become. I think yeah, you need to go do a little history. Yeah, man, you might want to find out that Clarence Thomas's son does not have a favorable outlook on him, because he doesn't have a child with Jeannie Thomas. He has a child with his first wife.
Oh, well, that explains it. Never mind.
Which was black. Right, his first wife was black. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now I got it. That makes sense then.
Yes.
We know what the reputation of Yale is. You got a network of folks in all walks of life in the legal community, and all you got to say is, man, I'm a Yale alum, and bam, you got a job. That was our perception.
He had thought, well, you know what? I just go make me a bunch of money, maybe go to New York and be a lawyer.
He and Kathy moved into married student housing. They made a connection with their neighbor.
We were both in married student housing. He set up his study room in what should.
If you folks don't know who this guy here is, he's one of the biggest Trump supporters there ever was. John Bolton. I'm sorry, I said Donald Bolton. John Bolton. He's a fixture in American politics. He's been around several presidents. He's made some very important decisions. Some folks would consider John Bolton as a warmonger. So again, being next door to this guy, he's known this guy since his college days. You don't think any of the views of John Bolton rubbed off on Clarence Thomas? You don't think that they're still friends? I think they are. Sean, your thoughts?
They're still friends. And yes, it rubs off his thoughts and views and position. Yep.
Yeah, I think so too.
Could have been, a joint storage room.
His classmate, John Bolton, would become UN ambassador, undersecretary of state, and national security advisor.
And we started talking and talked for the next 2 years, basically, and that's where we got to know each other.
Over time, Thomas would open up to Bolton.
I don't think he was terribly happy at the law school. Look, people at Yale Law School, generically speaking, are a pretty arrogant group. They think that they're going to rule the world. For example, in the year...
I think he's being a little bit nice when he says this. What he should have said is that John Bolton should have said that Clarence Thomas told me that he didn't feel he fit into Yale because of his color, because of skin color. And the folks at Yale thought that also, and they vocalized it to him. You don't really belong here. You must be got into this school for one reason and one reason only. They call it DEI these days. Back then, it was called affirmative action. Is you don't know the material. The only reason you're here because Holy Crow.
You're Borgen. Last thing I heard was you only here because of
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I borg again?
Yeah, the only thing I heard was you only hear because of.
Oh, okay. Well, I think for him, he thinks for some reason or the other that those folks at Yale and Harvard and all these prestigious schools, they say that he's not there based on the merits of what he knows. He's only at that school based on for one reason and on affirmative action.
Okay, gotcha.
That's why he's there. That's why he's able to attend Harvard. He doesn't get over that either. Again, everything about Clarence Thomas' life that we've seen so far, again, has been dedicated to his father or some type of race-based related thing. His whole life has been on that. He's teeter-tottered to try to teeter-totter in both extreme measures. Thoughts, Sean?
No comments. Thank you.
Ahead of us were Bill and Hillary Clinton. That was kind of the atmosphere. I don't think Clarence came with that in mind for himself. And I think it was kind of off-putting.
And there are other black students there, but again, the black students who are there, like, he doesn't feel they're like him. He's not part of the elite. They're, in his mind, privileged kids, the sons and daughters of doctors and lawyers. So he feels, again, like the out.
Even though those folks were black folks that he was referring to, they still were the sons and daughters of prominent black folks, meaning doctors and lawyers. He was the son of a crackhead mama and a daddy that didn't want him, and grandfather that was abusive. So even in a prestigious place like Yale, he still felt out of place, even amongst his own skin folk. He still felt out of place. Sure, thoughts?
I agree.
Cast.
He believed that people assumed he was there as a beneficiary of affirmative action, and it grated on him.
He has this feeling of home around these white students who he senses question his presence at Yale. How is it that you, not just you, Clarence Thomas, but you, all you black students are here? Is it because of merit, or is it because of affirmative action? There was one law professor, Ralph Winter, who, in a challenging way, mentioned this. People don't think, you deserve to be here, that kind of thing. And Thomas doesn't take it as a challenge, he takes it as a slight.
Rather than try to fit in, Thomas tried to stand out.
He dressed in overalls and a t-shirt. It was kind of a uniform. But neither one of us was terribly rich, so I didn't wear overalls, but I understood what it meant for him.
With Clarence Thomas, what you see is somebody who's isolating himself. And he's kind of saying, I don't want to try to join you, maybe because he doesn't want to be rejected again.
After 3 years of Yale Law School, graduation was nearing. But Clarence Thomas wasn't getting the offers he expected from prestigious law firms.
He was saying that he wasn't getting the kind of offers that other students were getting. And we couldn't understand it. We thought that, well, you're at Yale and getting offers, something's wrong, because that's the whole purpose of going to those schools.
Thomas would never forget the sting of those rejections.
He said he would keep stacks of rejection letters he had gotten from law firms. Even when he was like a Supreme Court justice, he had these letters just to sort of remind him of those, again, this feeling of rejection by kind of the elite law firms.
He had his Yale law degree, and he had a 10-cent stamp stuck to it. Like a 10-cent price tag stuck to it. And he's like, yeah, this is what it's worth, right? 10 cents, right? No more.
He came.
Can you? Am I good, Sean? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I want y'all to understand that Clarence Thomas blamed his success on where he's at, not on, he says, because of affirmative action. Think about what he's saying, that white folks said he's in this school not on his merits, but because of affirmative action. Well, okay, Clarence Thomas, again, if you're ever listen to the stream, let me ask you something. Did affirmative action ever take any one of those bar exams? Did anybody in the affirmative action team give you the answers to the bar exam? No. So maybe you should stop blaming affirmative action and understand that if it's not been for affirmative action, you would have never been at Holy Cross. You would have never been at Yale. You would have never been the subject of ridicule. You probably would be down still in Savannah working at the docks. Or even worse yet. Thoughts? Sure. You think affirmative action is the downfall of Clarence Thomas?
No, it's not the downfall.
I think it put him in, as they say, I think affirmative action put him in play, and there's nothing wrong with that. You got to be able to, as they say, level the playing field somehow. But again, when it comes to affirmative action, white folks have benefited, and women benefited from it. The alphabet community benefited from it. We weren't the only, as Avonda said the other night, when it comes to affirmative action, we're not a monolith when it comes to that. Black people weren't, because it opened the door for everybody. Agreed?
Agreed.
Now I knew what a law degree from Yale was worth when it bore the taint of racial preference. I was humiliated and desperate.
He thought that his degree was devalued, that he didn't get the same kind of cachet out of the degree once he was looking for a job and trying to move in his career. He assumed that others were assuming that it's a Yale law degree, but with an asterisk next to it.
I disagree. I disagree totally.
Orion Douglas had a strikingly similar academic journey to Clarence Thomas's. Scholarship to Holy Cross.
A 100 years before, okay, the system was still there. The infrastructure for separate discrimination was still there. It was still a segregated mindset of white America.
Make America great again. We all thought that was the logo of Donald Trump, but that came out with Reagan. Make America great again. So I ask for all those folks that say that we don't have a seat at the table. Sure, we're going to wrap up here pretty soon, in about the next minute or so anyway. So again, make America great again. And for all those folks that say that black folks don't have a seat at the table, here is proof positive that Clarence Thomas does have a seat at the table. But in every juncture, he had a chance to great for black folks. He turned the other cheek. He walked away from it. He decided to dedicate his life to white America. Now, that's the life that you want to live. That's on you. And just like Black Hawk just said, of all people, Clarence Thomas should know that just because you're in a so-called elite status, white folks are quick to remind you, as Jay-Z said it, in that song OJ, still nigga. Clarence Thomas, no matter how far you try to escape from blackness, your skin tone does not let you. Sure?
Yeah, I would think he would fight for it, especially since he is a product of it. And at that time, 60s, 70s, it just need to be some diversity so people can have a fair share getting jobs. equal rights, the amount of pay and everything else. But he's
Yeah,
helping destroy all that, him, his power, the power couple.
yeah. Actually, it does everything that helped build those two up. They have systematically torn apart. This Supreme Court that we have now, it is not the Chief Justice that's running it. It is court. So everything that's detrimental to abort. And then we go to the LGBT community. Those are things that Clarence Thomas and Jeannie Thomas despise. So they're going to do everything they can to destroy it. Again, this bump stock is another example of the only people that use it. What do you need a bump stock for? Folks, it's been proven that these mass shooters use these. It's easy to reload. They're able to create maximum firepower. They're able to take out as many folks as they want to. What with Clarence Thomas and the Chief Justices in their right mind decide to say this is something that should be overturned, a ban against that. Somebody has to have you in their pocket, Clarence Thomas. So that goes back to what ABT said. Somebody got you in their pocket. Hey there, Tequila, how are you? Good to see you, sweetie. Thank you for dropping it. But with that, folks, we're going to get on up out of here. Again, sorry for the Borging from time to time, but until we get this straight, sometime I'd much rather do a struggle stream than not at all. So I appreciate you folks sticking in with us. Thank you so very much. Shar, any closing words on what we talked about here today?
Very interesting. Learned a few things, and thank you for having me.
Anytime. We'll be back next week again, folks. When they say we as Black folks don't have a seat at the table, I disagree, and I'm going to show you why I disagree. And I just started to talk at the top. I started at the top by saying this: yes, we do. We have the biggest seat at the table right now, because the Supreme Court decides everything. The Supreme Court decides what laws we have to abide by, what is constitutional, and what is unconstitutional. So if they call it this Supreme Court, the Thomas Court, who's really running America? We do have a seat at the table, but it's the wrong person. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove to you. The next one we're going to talk about is Hakeem Jeffries. I'm going to show you a stark difference between Hakeem Jeffries and Clarence Thomas. Okay? With that, till then, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow is Father's Day. So I'm going to say early Father's Day. So very much. All the steps.
Happy Father's Day.
Father's Day at 8 o'clock. So if you're inclined to, click the link that says Classic R&B Jams, and you have to tune into the radio because I can't broadcast on you to shut you down.
Yeah.
But anyway, folks, 8 p.m. We'll be celebrating Father's Day. So join me if you like. With that, Sean, anything you want to add to the conversation before we get out of here?
That will be all. Good night, everyone.
Good night, folks. Thank y'all so very much for tuning in. We is out here. It's been good having you, Sean. Thank you very much. Look for us next week again. Our next topic on do we have a seat at the table will be Hakeem Jeffries. All right? So y'all folks be good. Thank you so much.